and a way forward. We have a large number of questions for the audience, and questions are from Colonel Anurag Jyoti. We have from Journal UK Dubey, Journal Sandhu, Dr. Roshan Kanijo, Journal Baduria, Journal Sarat Chand has number of questions. Then from Kanchana, Rakesh Baduria again, and then we have questions from Amit and Kanchana. Now, I'll not get into each and every question. I would group them into certain clusters and then seek the views of our distinguished panelists. And the first question is mostly that in view of General Katoch, I mean, I'm also adding a little bit that is there a realization for a policy reset on Jammu and Kashmir, because no policy is perfect. And as we move forward, certain lessons are drawn. So what is that policy reset in terms of political rebooting and addressing the alienation? Because you're very closely associated with the government, and they will have your ear and all. Second question I have is about to maybe Mr. Drabu, who comes from the epicenter, and how do we deal with the alienation and this political Islam, which has radicalized a large segment of society there? How do we deal with that? And a next question I would address to Mr. Ashok Bhan, that there are still regional imbalances in or there were imbalances in the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. And let me give you my personal example, what those imbalances were. Mr. Drabu may be listening there. I was a first class first holder in my 10+2. And there were third divisioners who from Kashmir and many other parts of Jammu and Kashmir went to medical college. And I did not get a seat because there was no system of written exam and interview. All they called me, and a couple of them asked me, what is the distance from Jammu to Bhadarwa? This was the question which I was asked. And the third divisioners went to medical college, and I, being a first divisioner, first class first, I did not. My wife is a position holder in BSc and MSc first class. She went for the interview for B.Ed and she was rejected. And there were girls, third division in Persian language from Kashmir, who made their way to, the medical college. I myself have been a victim of this regional discrimination and things like that, and I can quote many such like examples. So what are we going to actually overcome this Kashmiri hegemony, which has been there in the state at the cost of other regions? So I would request Mr. Hasib to talk about that. Similarly, there are certain aspirations in regard to demographic changes which may come about, a land grab by the outside, outsiders from Punjab, and particularly this sentiment is very much prevalent in the minds of people of Jammu region who are very close to Punjab. So what safeguards we need to induce or inject into the system so that some of these aspirations and concerns are addressed? And last, I would request every General Ranbir to talk about the security of political workers, and particularly some of these sarpanches and other people who are involved in block level elections and other things, and there have been killings of policemen and their families. How are we going to ensure this security at the grassroots level? Is the police of Jammu and Kashmir capable of doing this? And then any other issue that you would like to state, particularly in the light of way forward, or how do we actually recover whatever we have lost and put this state on the course of sustainable security and development? So I'll start with General Katoch.
Okay. Thank you, General Sharma. I'll be very brief. Obviously, a reset is required. And I think the government is well aware. I mean, I'm not part of the government. I mean, I just read what the rest of you are reading. The point is, a reset is required, but nothing would have improved in the state of Jammu and Kashmir if we had continued on the old path. That is the whole fundamental point. You see, Mr. Haseeb Drabu says, I'm not going to get into an argument with him here, that everything was hunky and dory earlier. It was a golden age of Kashmir. If it was a golden age of Kashmir, why did you have this problem? If there is no unemployment, if everybody's happy, if milk and honey is floating around, why did you have this problem? Why did radical Islam come in? It was never a movement for Azadi. It was an idea to create a theocratic state. And that is why the Kashmiri Hindus were thrown out of Jammu and Kashmir in that genocide which took place. And Mr. Haseeb Drabu doesn't talk about that. You see, that is the problem. We don't confront realities. So now, moving ahead, what do we do? One, as Mr. Ashok Bhan states, every single Kashmiri Hindu must be resettled back. One, the people who threw him out must be tried for genocide and put behind bars, including the political leadership, regardless of the political party. Two, that starts the healing process. Number three, I think we have to address the fundamental problem of terrorism, which is not in Kashmir. There you have to address it in Islamabad. And unless we address it in Rawalpindi and Islamabad and make the cost, as General Ranbir said, to the Pakistanis so exorbitant, right down to the extent of breaking that state, it'll be difficult to solve this problem. Now, the last point, please understand, at some point of time, Jammu and Kashmir will become a full state, right? In my view, it was required to go in for the UT status because the police had been compromised, the political parties had been compromised. Please read the book by Bashir Assad, The K File. Go, and he's a son of the soil. He's from Shopia. Read that book and find out how the state, how the Hurriyat had compromised everybody. If you wanted a job, you had to go to the Hurriyat. Otherwise, you couldn't get a job. You've got an administration which has been compromised. You had a police which was working under a political dispensation which was compromised. And then you want to restore normalcy. It doesn't work that way. We have a very long road ahead. And under no stretch of the imagination did I suggest, and with that impression, sorry, if that impression went to Mr. Haseeb Drabu, I apologize. I don't have his great fluency of language and wisdom of thought, right? What I meant was there is a change, right? This change will reflect over the next few years. Don't expect that change in 1 year. It will come. I know it will come. I'm also practically a son of the soil, right? Half my relatives are in Jammu. I've served a great portion of my life in Kashmir. My grandfather served there. My father served there. I've got more history there than most of the people who live there, right? I have the love for that place. And if I was there, I would never have thrown out my Kashmiri brethren. I would have fought for them. And I'm surprised that the people who are talking here did not fight for them. Please, look into your conscience. See what you have done. See your problem, the way you have put, what have you done to your state, right? And then come out and talk. Then talks will be fruitful, not otherwise. We have a long road to go. Jammu and Kashmir will become a state, right? Ladakh, of course, will remain a union territory. I think the Ladakhis are absolutely delighted. Please also ask your question, why is Ladakh so happy? What did you do in the last 70 years to the Ladakhi people, the government of Jammu and Kashmir? You see, because we want to talk soft language, I can be as hard as possible. And I will request Mr. Haseeb Drabu on a separate this thing, let us debate these issues out for 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, right? And I will come with those facts and figures to disprove everything which you have said also. So it is not that it's one way, that you can just say that everything was hunky-dory and 370 aane ke baad kuch nahi hua. Aisi baat nahi hai. There is great merit to what has been done. And I'm absolutely confident that we are on the right path. We need to follow it. Don't stop now. That is my only message. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now may I request Mr. Haseeb Drabu to give us his way forward if he was the lieutenant governor or the chief minister of that state, which he could very much be in times to come. How do you sort of restore the situation, Mr. Haseeb Drabu?
Sure. I regret that it's becoming more like an Arnab Goswami debate. But Kishore Saab, nothing personal. But let's not get angry with each other. I will discuss with you. I will reach out to you. We'll discuss it. Just one small clarification. आपने अभी ये कहा लद्दाख के बारे में. They're very happy. In today's newspapers, Leh leaders have boycotted LHDC polls. Aaj, today's front page news. LHDC polls boycotted by Leh leaders, not Muslims, not Kashmiris. But let that be. I don't want to get into a debate of this kind. Just to provide factual information. Otherwise, I would not have raised it. I don't want to respond. I don't need to prove my thing with Kashmiri Pandits. I've written about it. I don't need to prove it to you. But having said that, I picked up 4 or 5 words: policy reset, Kashmir hegemony, alienation, radicalization, corruption, disillusionment. I have only one small query. Where in India doesn't this happen? Is corruption a birthright of Kashmiris and confined to Kashmiris? Why does it become a political issue? क्या बिहार में corruption नहीं है? UP is not corrupt. Maharashtra is not corrupt. Gujarat doesn't have corruption. Why does it become a political issue? Why does everything come to this? Kashmir hegemony. Yes. But isn't that what majoritarian democracies are about? Are we saying that India is now a Hindu hegemony? No. It's like if 66% of the population is Muslim and Kashmir based, then you will have that problem. That's a problem of democracy, not of how it functioned in J&K. Let us understand, why are we complicating everything and seeing it from this prism? But if I were to kind of alienation radicalization, I am a Kashmiri Muslim. I have grown up there. These were alien. Alienation was alien to me. So was radicalization. We come from a different set of things, but that again, it was imported by whoever it was, for no fault of mine or ours. First of all, the first premise should be, and I know who I am speaking with, which is why I am raising this issue. Please don't treat security as synonymous with peace. Ensure security and leave it to professionals like you, but enable peace. Today, we are making the mistake of treating security as synonymous with peace. That is not correct, sir. We need to ensure security. I can ask you as a Kashmiri, why were you allowing people to come onto my land from Pakistan? I wasn't minding the borders, not my failure, not state government failure. What are we talking of here? I will ask you this question. How was he coming in from 90s? Who was responsible? It was the government of India, not the government of J&K. That's how the problem arose. It was all hunky-dory. There was milk and honey. No, it was not there. But I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that was not the reason for militancy. It was something else, for which we'll again debate. But first of all, sir, please ensure that there is security, but enable peace. Don't damage the republic while you are ensuring security. That is point number 1. Point number 2, how do you enable peace? You will have to have political initiatives. You will have to have social initiatives. You have to have economic initiatives. We have discussed enough about political, social. I think Ranveer Saab did make an issue about cultural things, heritage and thing. I think it's also important to understand that is diversity today a valued thing at all? If not, then let's re-examine it. I'm open to all kinds of views. I will not focus on political and social because much has been done. I'll talk about the economy. We don't want large industries. The world is moving in a different direction. Does anybody in this webinar realize that India is the 6th largest producer of apples in the world? J&K and Kashmir Valley specifically, because it's the only one that grows apples, is the 5th largest in the world. Is the 6th? India is the 5th largest? Oh, Kashmir on its own is 6th largest. India can become the 2nd largest producer of horticulture in a matter of 3 years. In a matter of 3 years. You don't need jobs, sir. You don't need government jobs. I started this program of apples in J&K. We produce 11 tons per hectare, which is the lowest in the world. If you go to 40, in 3 to 5 years, we will be the 2nd largest producer of apples in the world. And given that it's a huge hinterland thing, you don't need any intervention measures. you will create India's most vibrant, sustainable economy in a state. You have a wonderful craft segment. We don't need Ambani's, Birla's, Riyas to come to Kashmir. Build a local capital. That is what is intrinsic. That is a policy reset that's required. We don't need that kind of investments. Yes, investments will be required from the government of India in infrastructure. What has been the track record? For the last 44 years, sir, we are trying to build a railway. It hasn't reached Banihal yet. No state government was involved. No corrupt politicians were involved. Why wasn't it done? I will ask this question, sir. How was it that even today the rail line hasn't reached J&K? The connectivity is a 34-year-old problem, sir. Land was not an issue. It was run by central ministries. Why wasn't it done? Access to markets, critical, not provided. Today, communication blockade, I can understand. I didn't raise any. Somebody said that I raised about this whole betrayal. I never used the word. I have never said in my earlier intervention, why did you put politicians behind bars? I have not said that, or house arrest. I don't even raise those anywhere. For me, those are non-issues, really speaking. When you come to the crux of the problem, where are these issues coming from, sir? Why wasn't developed? So the point being, do a policy reset that understands the specificity, the strengths of the JK economy. You have three distinct areas. You have a hydro economy in Chenab Valley. You have a crafts and horticulture in the valley, and you have SSI and micro enterprises in the plains of Jammu. Use those strengths and try and build a sustainable economy. One route, way forward, which since I was asked very specifically and I've written about this, is instead of bifurcation, it was much better to do a trifurcation. It's an artificial state created for a certain purpose of the Maharaja. We tried an experiment, it has failed. Today, the biggest problem I find in my erstwhile state is it is Jammu versus Kashmir. It was always there, but not to this extent. Now it's antagonism. And I am worried. Initially, Sharma Saab raised this issue about delimitation commission. I am worried that there will be gerrymandering and it will further cause a problem. Look for a cleaner arrangement. Do a trifurcation. Should have been done. Karan Singh ji talked about 1964, that there is no logic left to this. Why are we doing it? So try and let us look at it afresh. I have no issues, as I said. 370 was a fraud on the people of J&K as it stood on 4th of August. It was all the husk had been taken away. The seed had been just a husk. There was nothing left of it. So let's not debate about those issues. That is past. And Gupkar, people raised about Gupkar declaration. Gupkar declaration is nothing but a way of seeking relevance of those parties. It's nothing to do with anything else. They are trying to make themselves relevant. Let's not even waste a breath on it. It has no credibility left. Forget that. What is the new way forward? That is where the focus should be. And I'm just speaking of the economics of it. Look at a completely different economic policy within J&K. You will not need the kind of government intervention that you are wanting to do. Yes, public investment has to be there in roads, in bridges, in power. How is it that the state economy that has capacity for 20,000 megawatts of power has not exploited even 20% of it? Can supply to the rest of the country. Why are we not doing it? So there are a variety of reasons for that. But for now, I would just end with this, that let's look at a specific economic policy for J&K, which is linked to the resources and the competencies of J&K, and create a model economy for tomorrow, not for yesterday. And just because all other economies in the country have been built on heavy industrialization doesn't mean J&K should follow that. We can look at an environmentally sustainable economy because of a very, very large answer. If you do that kind of economic development, it reaches people in the rural areas who have been radicalized and alienated. And it provides them a regenerative, sustainable model of existence and livelihood. And that itself will take care of the problem of alienation and unemployment and radicalization. Thank you, Funas.
Thank you very much, Dr. Haseeb. Ashokji, I would like you to dilate a little bit more on how do we reboot the political process in the state? We can't continue with lieutenant governors ruled till cows come home. Sooner or later, if the status of GNK UT has to be upgraded to statehood, elections must take place. So, what is your way forward on the political rebooting?
The only method for that is start a mindset that you are willing to talk. If you are not willing to talk to your own people, who would you talk to? If you claim that by 370 abrogation, we have to mainstream Jammu and Kashmir fully, it can't be done in vacuum. It has to be done with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And people of Jammu and Kashmir, as of date, as everybody says, it's a reality that are feeling alienated. How do you win back the trust and confidence of the people? Economic measures are very relevant for that, but the political aspirations have also to be addressed. So the idea of India as a narrative has to be built up. Who would you build it through? Through King's Party, which has a very small base, through Panchayat people who are not willing to be declared as panches because of security reasons. Through whom at least? At least there are moderate elements within society. There are political persons available because politician has always a vested interest on the ground. If there are MLAs available, ex-MLAs available for talking, what is the harm in talking to them? You can't force your own political party on Kashmir because for the last 70 years, the public perception in Kashmir goes that BJP is not acceptable as a party in Kashmir Valley at least. So in Kashmir Valley, you have to create an environment. Let me tell you one more thing. As Hasib said, as everybody is saying, as the commanders on the ground say, that by now 30 years of turmoil has made Kashmiris realize that the Indian state as a country has come to stay in Kashmir. That is why they want to look towards the Banihal, across the Banihal tunnel, not across the from Uri. And Pakistan has lost politically in Kashmir, except that it has stray militant presence there. And as a perception, it exists in some smaller percentage of people. Isolate them and take recourse to talk to the people. There are people. Government of India has been talking. The agencies have been talking. But it needs to be consolidated, and you need to appoint a committee or a political pointsman who can start it at track 2 level. It's not necessary that they will come and officially talk to you. And it will not take much time after the abrogation of 370 now. If the realities have to be made understood to them, it can be done. And they have realized it. With 370 gone and dusted now, they have realized, Kashmiris are realizing that there is a need for dialogue, there is a need for mainstreaming, and they have to save the future generations. They can't, there is one already generation in the graveyards because of militants. Kashmiris understand that there is no future with the other side. The future lies with India. And for making them realize, for making that, accomplish that, you have to reboot the political process at various levels. And I think confidence building measures have already been put in place. Most of the people are being released from the detention and house arrest. It's a good beginning. And most of the other moderate elements from within the other side who have chosen not to be part of democracy so far need to be approached. What is the big deal? I've been talking to government. They've already talked to the government. And you need to create, I think, certain constituencies where you can identify people. And there are people willing to come forward, provided Government of India appears to be very honest and very sincere about the political process. And in this new Lieutenant Governor appointment, it has, I think, it has given some hope to them. And he cannot do it directly. Put a committee in place which can attract one level, do it. And my old pointsmen will not work now because they have lost the credibility. Old pointsmen very flamboyant with everybody. That's not done. It has to be done very astutely. And in previous governments, there was a track to business going on. Sati Lamba was talking to Pakistan. Even I, for some time, was talking to the local people. So there is a scope. And do not close that door. If you close that door, I think nothing will not turn around to anyone. And now the elections are also in offing. Delimitation is in the process. Therefore, you have a very limited time available for that process. If you mainstream more and more people, more and more opinions, more and more civil society, even there is no harm in talking to the second line of Hurriyat leadership. Because they are also now sick of violence. They want to join mainstream. Somebody needs to. So therefore, my view is that even Kashmiri Pandits are not being approached. They are not being talked about. For the last 7 years, they have been seeking audience with Prime Minister, Home Minister. It was never given, except in the US because of that Howdy Modi. That audience was given to a small group of people, not to the representatives of Kashmir. After Kashmiri Pandits are aborigine population, natives of Kashmir. They have 5,000 years of history engraved in their valley. They need to be talked to. They need to be sent back, returned back with security, with some package. So until Kashmiri Musalman also sees that if they don't talk to their own people like Kashmiri Pandits, how can they trust talking to us? So my take on this is that you need to reach out to the maximum, all mainstream, non-mainstream political persons, groupings, and civil society. It might take a while, but it is an exercise worth it to mainstream and promote the idea of India narrative in Kashmir. That's my.
My last issue with General Ranbir is, though besides the questions that have been addressed, India is beset with a real collusive hybrid two-front dilemma. And we have pumped in a lot of forces in Ladakh because of the situation there. And we have to be totally prepared for some kind of aggression, maybe from Pakistan side also. At the same time, Indian Army has, particularly Northern Command, has a major role in the internal security of Jammu and Kashmir, particularly Kashmir Valley. So in the light of evolving security scenario, is there a new model that you have in mind which can probably relieve the Indian Army from its internal security duties and permit it to put more focus on its primary duties? Is there a model that you have in mind that you would like to share? And another question is, my own interaction with people say that no matter what happens, Army still remains the most respected institution of Government of India there. People trust you a lot What role can army play in reaching out to the people and extending the authority and the goodwill?
Thank you very much, sir. I think very useful inputs have come from all the learned speakers. The first point which you've raised about altering our grid and army being used for its primary role and leaving it for the other agencies to take care of the security of the hinterland. I would only like to mention that the army has, as you are aware, large number of contingency plans wherein troops, if required, to move out from the valley to areas either to Ladakh or to areas south of the Panjal or even to areas outside. Such plans do exist and we keep practicing them on a regular basis. We also have similar plans to get troops from outside the Jammu and Kashmir or outside Northern Command to come and beef up our counter-infiltration or the counter-terrorism grid during the periods when we feel that additional strength is required or protection of the roads, convoy protection, such things need to be done. And there is a very effective multi-tiered counter-infiltration grid which is in place. It gets further thickened up during the summer months when, like I said, that some troops from outside come in, so as to ensure that the infiltration attempts by any of the undesirable elements are able to thwart at some step or the other. However, with the coming in of the situation which is manifested itself on the line of actual control, there are plans as per our operational planning, and some troops may have moved out thereby readjusting the counter-infiltration and the counter-terrorism grid along the LC and in the hinterland. So I would just leave it at that there are plans. So those plans are being put into effect. Rather, I would not go into the details as to how many would have gone, but surely the requirement of some beefing up of troops from the valley, from Northern Command to the areas of LAC would have taken place. And that is how the readjustment of the grid would have been done. The second point you raised was regarding the army reaching out to the local population. I would say, and there was a very subtle statement which you made, that the locals have the maximum respect for the army. Amongst all the security forces, they are willing to share their grievances because they know that we have a footprint almost in every area. And therefore, the first responders to any situation is the army subunit, which is located in the vicinity. I would say that even post the abrogation of Article 370, the government also relied totally on the army because we wanted to find out as to what are those small-time aspirations of local villages in terms of development. Somebody wanted a playground, somebody wanted a bridge to come up, even to the extent of hand pumps to be coming up in various places. The army, which had been able to compile, collate such requirements, and on a village-to-village basis provided to the Lieutenant Governor through the divisional commissioners, both of Kashmir and also of Jammu. So army has a huge role in reaching out to the people. People have respect for the army. And it is important for the army also to maintain that status and not let this respect go away. And that is why we always insist on ensuring that we should not under any circumstances do something that can put a finger of element of doubt on the intentions of the army, which has fortunately not been there so far. You also raised a question on the security of the political workers during the elections in your earlier articulation. I would say that during the last 3 elections that have taken place, when there have been some incidents of violence, of targeting of some sarpanches or political workers who were contesting elections, the army has provided all support. Army has not got into directly dealing with the political workers or providing any kind of a support to the political process. But by virtue of our presence, we do provide incidental protection and security to each and every activity. To give you an example, that should there be any political activists who are feeling a threat to their life, it is the police who is providing protection, but they do get such people close to the company operating bases of the army. They get co-located along with them, and it provides incidental protection to each and every person who's there. And that is one reason why we could ensure that not too much of violence took place during the last two elections, insofar as targeting of the political workers are concerned. But there are quite a few political workers who keep moving around, because after all, they have to also reach out to people to be able to do their electioneering and campaigning. And there are occasions at that time when they get trapped and some terrorists are able to take advantage. But we do, even to the extent of providing training to the police personnel for providing protection to the important dignitaries. That training is also being imparted by the army in various training centers there. One or two issues which I just wanted to highlight, I would say. The first is the point regarding the improved security situation. It must be seen that for the past couple of years, the state administration and the civil administration there, they kept giving the reason for lack of development in certain areas as that there is too much of movement of terrorists in that place and therefore development cannot take place. But now the security forces have been able to generate and create those conditions wherein movement is freely possible by all the developmental agencies to carry out those developmental works. And that's one reason various initiatives which were being spoken about during the course of the webinar, it has become possible for these teams from the center and from the state to reach out to various places and feel confident that they can interact with the people, feel the pulse of the population and take the step forward. And this is also a result of improved situation because the information is flowing from the awam. It is the people who are providing information regarding the move of terrorists whom they are not willing to provide the kind of support which they used to provide earlier. So I think it's a positive step on the right trajectory, and we need to consolidate the gains and ensure that it is not allowed to derail further. A point also came up regarding reaching out to various quarters. Seepji also mentioned, Bhatt Sahab also mentioned. We couldn't agree more to that because we must understand that this fundamentalist ideology is only a small segment of the population who keep coming on televisions and keep speaking on various forums. But there's a large majority, which is silent majority, who are the people of Jammu and Kashmir, who have their thoughts in mind, but they're not willing to come out. They need to be provided that support. They need to be provided that holding of hands so that their voices come up. And that is where the efforts by the state government and various other agencies are being done so that we can see as to what is that second rung of leadership and the third rung of leadership who can not only come up themselves, but they should also act as catalysts to be able to get other people out from there so that we can continuously work on a common direction. And one positive sign, which again I thought I must share, that while the people of Jammu and Kashmir, quite a few of them, especially in Kashmir, felt slightly betrayed and cheated when the decision for abrogation was done. But there was a common thread in all of them. All of them said very categorically that they are tired of violence and they would not like to support any violence in future. Any redressal of grievances or any giving out of grievances which is there, they are willing to talk. And we should be able to provide them a platform where we should be able to listen to them. And therefore, it is important to keep the channels of communication open. And I would just like to close by saying once again that we have embarked on the first step in our journey towards integrating J&K and ushering in better security and development. We need to give it a push. We need to have patience, willpower, and resolve to take this process forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, General Ranbir. In conclusion, I would, rather than giving a summing up, I would request our panelists to make a parting remark. Jan Katoch.
No, I've really got nothing much to say, except one thing. It is a long road ahead. It is a difficult road ahead. We must accept that. But in my personal view, I'm an optimist. We will get there. Thank you.
Yes. Hasib Saab?
So two things which I said also, don't leave it to government alone. It's as the civil society of India has as much of a role to play as the government. And most importantly, for policymakers, as well as people like you who are very, very critical in terms of determining the future of Kashmir, please relook the mindset. It's important to change the mindset more than a policy reset. A mindset reset is required right now if the future of Kashmir has to be what we all want. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And Ashok ji?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'll just unmute this just for. Sir, my last thought would be that India's strategic interest lay in the people, not in the land alone. So therefore, people are very important. We need to reach out to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. As General Ranbir Singh said, that people are sick of violence. They provide intelligence. Why should a common man provide intelligence to security? They don't take money for that. They do it out of their anxiety to bring peace in the valley and save their future generation. I am an incorrigible optimistic, and I feel that we can reach out to both mainstream and non-mainstream political parties, political groups to start the process of engagement. And I think we have a better future in Kashmir for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ranbir, parting remarks?
Thank you very much, firstly, for giving me an opportunity on this very, very important occasion to share my views and thoughts. And I would say that we should keep measuring small successes which each of the agencies have and keep looking at giving suggestions for mid-course corrections so that those successes can be consolidated. And wherever any change in direction is required, that can be done for the better. To give you a very small example, if the situation post the abrogation of Article 370 was kept under total control, it is not only the efforts of the security forces, but that is the time when a whole of government approach came into play, wherein we had all the representatives of the National Investigation Agency, the Income Tax Department, the Enforcement Directorate, the National Narcotics Control Bureau, and the security forces. And that's the reason why we could sort of we could choke all the networks, whether it was the funding network, Hawala networks, intelligence networks, infiltration attempts from Pakistan networks by putting down all the internet things. So it was a very cumulative and a comprehensive approach adopted, which could lead to these. And we need to keep measuring these small successes, consolidate those gains, work out so that the pulse of the population is never lost sight of, and ultimately work towards the betterment of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. In conclusion, I just want to say that Jammu and Kashmir has been and will remain an integral part of India. But it is not only the land, it is also the people of Jammu and Kashmir, right? So therefore, nobody can ever dare to even take an inch of Jammu and Kashmir away from the Union of India. But there is a problem with the people there, and I think this de-alienation and rebooting the political process should also remain, receive equal focus. And I think we need to engage with people like Mr. Dabu, who has so much of knowledge, and Mr. Ashok Bhan, who is a constitutional authority. And there are so many people like that from the state of Jammu and Kashmir who are well-meaning, who are die-hard patriots and nationalists. I think it's high time we incorporate them and get their inputs also, and then whatever policy decision and implementation government of India does for the good, probably that will receive a better traction. And I would say that I have been interacting with people of Jammu and Kashmir, large number of discussions which we had at the US side. And purposely, I did not get people from Lutyens Delhi because they have a certain perspective of Kashmir. Banihal tunnel syndrome doesn't exist on that side of tunnel. It is also this side that we look at Kashmir through certain blinkers. So we made it a point to get these people and do certain cross fertilization of ideas and all. And USI as an institution is more than willing to engage with the youth of Kashmir. Let them come, abuse whatever pent up feelings they have, let them express themselves. But my view is, and I have been doing it with people, ultimately, any rational human being will be guided by logic and persuasion. And I think we should create multiple platforms and use the people of Jammu and Kashmir to prevail upon their own people and have some kind of a moderation and sobering effect so that a new process of engagement, particularly with the youth, commences. We purposely had this panel where we could get very candid views from both sides of the spectrum, and I'm very happy that we had a very constructive yet very animating discussion. And each one of us know people, I think, Mr. Drabu and General Katosh, they know each other very well and they've been interacting at certain level. I hope that this process carries on and in due course, we would see peace and harmony in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So with these words, I thank all our esteemed panelists and participants for being with us on this very important occasion. And we look forward to your expertise in the events that we would be scheduling in times to come. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Have a good day. Good luck and gratitude.
Thank you very much.
Close this meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.